Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Reviewing Comics with me, your host, Alexander Turbin. Today we're going to be going over Tarzan versus Predator at the Earth's core. But before we get into that, I'd like to show you some of my own work. This is Random Access. It's a full-size, full-color comic that you can get from my Patreon. If you go to patreon.com/Alexander Turbin, or you can go to my website, alexanderturbin.com, and that'll have all of my previous works. Or you can just message me at alexturbin0441@yahoo.com, which is my email, or alexturbin0441 at Instagram. So now that we're done with the shameless plugging, let's get into Tarzan versus Predator. I was mulling over what I was going to go over today, what I was going to review, and I saw this cover. It's cool cover. Tarzan's cool. Predator's cool. Even though I'm not a huge Tarzan fan, I think it's just that I haven't read the original source material. Like, I was a huge Conan fan, all growing up because of the movies and because of the comic books. But it wasn't really until I actually read the Robert E. Howard Conan books that I was like, wow, this is completely more than those movies and comics showed. It's a completely different dimension to the character. So maybe I'll go back and try to read some Tarzan books and see what that brings to light. Maybe I'll really like it. I don't know. So the big reason that I did choose this is because Walter Simonson is my favorite artist, and he's also one of my favorite creators, so he's one of my favorite writers as well. And Lee Weeks, I remember looking at his stuff back in the 80s and really not being that impressed, but then I've seen some of his stuff, more modern stuff, and I really, really appreciate it, and I really like it. Maybe the stuff that he had done earlier was butchered by an inker, or maybe it was just that he was a young artist and he was good, but he hadn't really attained that level of quality that I think he has now, which is really great. I think what he did was he kind of looked at Dave Mazzucchelli's Year One and Daredevil stuff, and I think he almost emulates his kind of line work and style and blacks and stuff, especially this first page. But I really feel like he kind of goes the way of David Mazzucchelli. I'm not going to like I usually do the story and then go back and look at the writing and the artists, because these are established guys. Walter Simonson is one of my favorite, like I said, he is my favorite artist of all time, and he's one of my favorite writers of all time too, because you don't have me reading the whole run of Thor if I just like your art. That's just not how I roll. The writing has to be really good as well as the art for me to truly appreciate a comic book. And so it's written by Walter Simonson, penciled by Lee Weeks, or illustrated, letters by Pat Brozu, colors by Perry McNee, and designed by Tice and Fuentes. It's done in 1996, so it's kind of an older book. But so let's get into this and see what we see. So there's a prologue before the prologue. There's a prologue of a prologue, which discusses previously what happened in previous Tarzan Dark Horse books. I'm not entirely sure, but this prologue talks about how Tarzan ended up in some sort of land, like Savage Land from Marvel, where it was dinosaurs and stuff, and it's in Antarctica, just like Savage Land is too. So they kind of steal that a little bit, but that's kind of a normal thing to have, like a dinosaur land or a heavy vegetation down in Antarctica or the North Pole or whatever, just because it's such a dichotomy of two different locations and two different environments that it really makes for a fascinating story, I think. So then the second prologue says, in 1912, the unsinkable liner, the Titanic, struck an iceberg and sank, taking some 1,500 souls to the bottom of the sea with her. Shortly thereafter, an international ice patrol was established to track icebergs. So this is one of the iceberg patrolling ships, and it's just kind of looking for icebergs, and they find one, lo and behold, and it's just this giant glowing iceberg. And so all of the captain and the crew go to the top side, and then they look up, and it's not the iceberg that's glowing. It's some sort of meteorite or ship or something that's flying from the sky. They say they have to head back to civilization and tell everybody what they saw. What they saw. So that ends that part of the story, and that's like that is the prologue pretty much. So then it zips to Tarzan and where he lives in Africa. Now this is my biggest complaint. I think I have a complaint with this, and really the only complaint I have is that time wise, like, isn't Tarzan? I looked it up, and Tarzan Adventures take place in 1888. He was created in 1918 or something like that, but his adventures take place in 1888, and yet this takes place either during World War II or slightly after, or I think it's actually during World War II or slightly before World War II. So same time as Indiana Jones, but how can that be 1945, 1944, 1943? How can that be when Tarzan takes place in 1888? Somebody who's a Tarzan aficionado, please tell me how that happened in the comic books, that he's alive in 1940s when he was, I mean, I guess if he was born in 1888, that still doesn't make any sense, because then he would be like 70 years old, 65 years old, and he's clearly in his 20s or 30s. He even has Jane, his wife there. So it goes to where he lives, and he has some sort of villa in Africa. And he's discussing with Jane and his friend, Moviro, who is probably some sort of chieftain of the native villages or whatever. So I don't know the lore of Tarzan that much, other than what everybody else knows. I know, he was abandoned as a baby in Africa, or his parents were killed or something like that. So he was raised by apes, and he's gone on all these adventures. One of the cool things I do know is that then the first Tarzan film, the actor actually had to kill one of the lions that leapt on him with a knife, and he actually did kill him instead of it being like some sort of special effects or whatever. That's the only little bit of Tarzan trivia I know. So the radio goes off, which still baffles my mind, but that this is Tarzan in almost a modern era. So the radio goes off, and it's some sort of it's like garbled up, but it's Emperor David Innes, crackle, vanished, I crack, fear, crackle, treachery, no, get away from me, help. So it's somebody from the city, or I think there's like a giant city in this savage land world in Antarctica that has all of these dinosaurs and stuff. And he is David Innes is the emperor of the city that has its inhabitants, some sort of inhabitants of like the savage land and stuff. So that's where we're going with. So at this point, Jane and Tarzan decide that they have to go try to rescue him, and he has a little bit of a flashback of the first time he was there, when he was going on an expedition to the savage land, and some of the things that happened and whatnot. When they are interrupted by a whirring of a plane, so a plane touches down, and it is the ambassador for the United States, or a special envoy for the President of the United States. And he goes on to discuss with Tarzan the thing about the light, which was some sort of a either meteor or a spaceship or something like that, and it's in the same vicinity of, lo and behold, the Savage Land place in Antarctica. So he implores Tarzan, which I don't know why he would get Tarzan to do this. He lives in Africa in the jungle. Is it supposed to be like the Antarctica and the tip of Africa? If anybody knows out there, please let me know, because I'm a little bit confused by the timeline and stuff like that, and why Tarzan would be chosen for this mission by the president. Although I guess his adventures have been spread out throughout the world, and people know that he's like an adventurer and stuff. So they decide to go to Antarctica, find out what is up with the missile, spaceship / meteorite or whatever that landed there. And also they're trying to find this David Ines, I believe. So they're in cross purposes. So they're on the plane and they're just kind of discussing what happened and why. Oh, one of the things they're discussing is Jane coming along with them. The ambassador, the envoy, is like, that doesn't make any sense. She's a woman, and plus all of the savages. And Tarzan is, of course, defending them and saying that Jane can take care of herself, and that the savages are actually not his servants or his workers or whatever. They're his friends, and they just go on these adventures with him. They're also talking about how the countries think that it might be a weapon designed by either the Germans or the Russians, and especially England is worried about the giant thing that landed in Antarctica or whatever. So they're headed towards Antarctica, and they're going along the trajectory of the wherever the savage land is, and they think at first they think it's like some sort of eclipse or something because it's this giant yellow light, but it's how do I explain it, or how do they explain it? I see a light up ahead, sunlight. It isn't possible. That's not our sun, Mr. Ambassador. That's the stationary star at the center of the Earth. So in this world, there's a star in the middle of the Earth that could be just molten lava. That could be like a volcano, and they just think of it as something else. But then they land and they're going to make camp. But you see all of these different bones and body parts laying around, and you get this feeling that the predator is definitely around the corner. They land, and Tarzan starts barking orders to his friends like, set up base camp, do this, do that. And the ambassador is like, I'm in charge here. And Tarzan then says, okay, then have your people set up a perimeter around the around the base camp and figure out what's out there. He rips off all his clothes, which I guess that's a Tarzan thing, and just his loincloth. And I don't know. Maybe that's one of the reasons I'm not into Tarzan, because if I'm Tarzan and I lived with the primitives, and I have primitive adventures, and I'm totally okay with that, him being in his loincloth and stuff. But if if I have access to modern technology and modern stuff, I guess it's the jungle, so that's what he feels best in. And I guess in the books when he does go back to civilization, he does dress normally. So I don't know. Somebody maybe explain that to me if you are a big Tarzan fan. So they're going through they're just kind of checking what's going on with around the surrounding of the base camp, and checking out the animals and stuff. And then they see all of the carcasses of the animals with their heads missing, and they're just lying there like they're trophies, like the heads were taken. And then they come across one of the soldiers that was with them, which I don't really understand. A soldier, one of the perimeter guards. Okay, so the soldier is spread out to protect the perimeter of the base camp, and then Tarzan and his group find one of them, and his head's cut off, and he's strewn up like the aliens do in their typical way. So they rush back to the encampment, and they see all of these dead soldiers with their heads popped off, and the one guy who his head's not popped off, his spear is laid down next to him, and the predator's blood rather, is all around him. And they give this sort of reason that he spilled the alien's blood. So even though the predator did kill him, he had enough respect for him because it was a good fight to lay him down with his spear and not to just take his head as a trophy. This was the son of the chieftain, and Tarzan had asked him beforehand to protect the village, or protect the encampment rather, and protect Jane in particular. And he took it very personally and took it to heart, and he did everything he could fighting off the predator, but to no avail, because the predator is obviously the greatest hunter in the universe. So they're just kind of I don't know. First, it looks like they're going to they're all right. This is what happens, I guess. Because I'm a little bit confused of this. They go looking for the predator, but then it says, but less than half a mile from the camp, here's where it ends, the trail or whatever, the blood, I guess. The scorched fire, the trees are scorched. There's a smell of hot metal in the air, and the ground is burned. So that must be a spaceship or something. So using their tracking skills, they're just kind of figuring out he's an alien. But then they go back to the encampment. Oh yeah, he says, let us go back. We've done all that we can now. So they double back to the encampment because they've lost the trail of the predator, and they burn all the bodies. They make a giant pyre and burn all the bodies to rest their souls and stuff like that. And then they're just kind of having some dialogue. And then these giant nets are thrown around them, and these Neanderthal-looking creatures take them hostage. And at first they try to struggle, but then Tarzan's like, stop struggling. These guys are going to take us to where we want to go. So then it cuts to a scene where Jane and some of the other people are held hostage. Not sure why the predator is all of a sudden taking hostages. Has the predator taken hostages in any of the other books other than, or comics or anything, or movies? I don't remember that, especially if they are a possible quarry. Like if they show that they are capable of attacking back, then I think that they don't take them hostage. But I could be wrong. Let me know if anybody knows. So there's some predator alien technology, some sort of encampment, I guess, and it's surrounded by these like electromagnetic or force field or something. So if something goes along the force field, then it gets zapped along. And that's really basically what this interlude is meant to show, is that the encampment of the predators, and there's more than one. There's more than one predator. There's several predators, like maybe 5 or 6. So I'm thinking maybe it's one of those things where one of them has to prove themselves. So these people are maybe taken captive, and they're going to be hunted by one of these predators. That's just a guess. If anybody has read the next 3 issues, because there's 4 of them, if anyone's read the next 3 issues and that's what happens, please let me know. So then it cuts the scene to the city that we were talking about earlier with David Ines, and he was the emperor. And these Neanderthal-like creatures have taken Tarzan and his group to be interrogated, I guess, by the new emperor. And the new emperor has killed David Ines and taken his wife as a slave. And he is now the new ruler of, I can't remember the name of the city. The name of the city is Pelikadar. And that's the main hub, the main city in this savage land world kind of thing. He says that we're going to interrogate you, and then everybody is going to be turned into slaves, and that's how you're going to live the rest of your natural lives. Tarzan freaks out, says never, and you like that? And he busts away from his captors, and he starts running into a hallway or a corridor or something, and smack, one of the predators, we assume it's one of the predators, knocks him out, and he's going to do something, but then he leaves. And for some reason, they're kind of like, they know who it is, these other savage guys, they know who it is, but they're not going there because they're fearful for their lives. And so they just go back. They do eventually, when the predator leaves, they do go and get Tarzan. And this is when the new guy who killed David Ines says you are much too dangerous to live. The rest of your crew, the rest of your friends will become slaves, and they will become slaves, and but you're going to die because you're too dangerous. And that's when they say, you want to know what happened to David Hines? This is what happened to David Hines. And they tie him up and they put him into some sort of tie him to a post, and the predators are coming to get him. So that's how it ends. To be continued, where Tarzan is tied up. So I did enjoy this book. This book feels like it's a lot of setup for the next 3 books. There's no Tarzan fighting predators or anything. I did really enjoy the art. I enjoyed Lee Weeks' art. I really love his narrative art. I didn't have to go back and reread anything. It was a seamless reading experience, really. There was nothing that was super fantastic about it, though. Like, it wasn't very imagey at all, where you have one big pose. Like, here's probably the biggest thing, where Tarzan gets into his skivvies, but that could have been much bigger and more potent. But there really isn't a lot of I don't know, scenes where it could have been like this, no big action scenes or no big fight scenes or anything like that. So he couldn't really show his chops by doing a cool action scene or anything like that. But it's very capable, very capable. All of the emotions are really great. All of the characters are really great. And there is a lot of writing. There's a lot of dialogue, a lot of story. It's not really, I mean, there is a lot of story, but it's all building up to stuff. So Walter Simonson, who is probably one of the better action writers, he's not really known for his deeply emotional stuff, which is kind of one of the reasons that I do like his writing, but it's not like Frank Miller / Alan Moore / Chris Claremont type of stuff. It's just not, there's not a lot of heavy emotional resonance with me. But it is a lot of really great action, and the characters really do come alive with his dialogue. He's got some really great dialogue, and he's got some great pacing with his stories. So I really do enjoy his writing. And I wish that this had been drawn by him? Of course I do. But I would have gotten this a lot sooner if this had been drawn by him, because I'm kind of a Walt Simonson completist. But I really did enjoy the writing, and I really did enjoy the art, because it really just shows that she's truly talented, and it's really good stuff. And he inked it himself, I believe. So, because it says illustrated by Lee Weeks. So he did the pencils and its inks. So that's probably one of the reasons why I like this a lot more than if somebody else had inked it. So yeah, I think this is a really good, solid comic, and I will definitely keep my eye out for Tarzan versus Predator at the Earth's Core 2 through 4. So I'm going to give this a solid 8. I judge a little bit harsher when I'm talking about professional comic artists, especially like Walt Simonson and Lee Weeks, who have done so much stuff. It's really good. I really did enjoy it, but it's not, it's not spectacular. Maybe the next issues do really ramp up that action, and something really spectacular does happen, but probably not. I mean, how spectacular can Predator versus Tarzan ever really be? How much emotional resonance can you get from that? Jane's not going to die, and none of the really other real characters that I could care about are going to die or anything like that, or there won't be any kind of other resolution. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe there is. Anyway, I'm going to keep my eye out for it, and I'm gonna get it if I can find it. But so yeah, Tarzan versus Predator, I'm giving an 8. If you just come across the channel, please consider subscribing and hitting the notification button and all that cool stuff. And but more than that, I like to hear comments from all of you guys about comic books, and this in particular, Tarzan. All you Tarzan fans out there, give me a shout out, because should I read more Tarzan stuff? Should I go back and read the original Edgar Rice Burroughs books? I don't know. I'm not sure why I haven't, but maybe I will. So let me know. Let me know what you guys think. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I hope you guys have a great weekend. And I will be back on Monday. And keep on creating.